In each new year, people usually reflect on life, express a few words, and articulate their good wishes for the upcoming year. All these sentiments exist within the meaning of life, yet often expressed without contemplating the essence, more like clichés during anniversaries, attempting to attribute meaning to life without much thought. Perhaps life has no inherent meaning, and the pursuit of meaning is a futile effort within one's own illusions. Even if that's the case, a reality remains. Humans consistently desire to make sense of life, to understand it. The question of the meaning of life, and consequently its meaninglessness, as Camus would argue, is a fundamental issue and a pursuit throughout the unchanging history of philosophy, spanning 2,500 years. Now, let's take a closer look at the question of life's meaning. The meaning of life is a profound and comprehensive, to some unnecessary and meaningless, subject. When discussing life and its meaning, it leads us from ontology to psychology, encompassing various fields. Without delving into these realms, as it might be overwhelming, I'll attempt to make some observations about the meaning of life. There is a world outside of us woven with objects, stones, soil, trees, wheat, etc. Do these objects have meaning on their own? In other words, if there were no humans in the world, would all these entities have any meaning? They wouldn't. What sets humans apart from other beings? Let's be more direct, animals. Some say it's the ability to produce tools. Others say it's standing on two legs, intelligence, etc. Regardless, the fundamental distinguishing feature of humans is the capacity to question their own existence. Thus, humans are the only beings aware of their own mortality, living under the sword of Damocles. Freud argues that Eros, the life instinct, and Thanatos, the death instinct, together constitute the meaning of life. The subject of humans, the mental world, begins with naming their relationship with objects. The practical aspect, starting with trial and error, classifies objects and relationships through naming. Classifying one object as a stone and another as an apple is the meaning of human interaction with the object. The history of the human mind is a journey from concrete to abstract. The adventure of giving meaning to life is more highlighted during this abstraction phase. Meaning is subjective and determined by the human subject. Therefore, life without humans does not have inherent meaning. What gives meaning to life is the human being. Whatever an individual contributes to life, how they relate to it. Life's meaning for that individual is limited to this web of relationships and its consequences. Hence, the conclusion is that life does not have a universally fixed meaning or a prescription for everyone. What we call the meaning of life is the web of relationships we establish with life, how we experience it, and what we contribute to it. Therefore, the meaning of life is different for each person, each subject. What makes life meaningful, what makes it livable, is the quality of life. By quality, I don't mean just material wealth, but the whole entity of the mind, culture, psychic world, along with its material aspect. Speaking of the quality of life, happiness determines it. Thus, quality of life and happiness are mutually influential. Here, a fundamental question arises: is the quality of life within the individual's control? In other words, is the individual the determinant of their own happiness? The above statements can lead to a misconception. If the meaning of life is based on the relationships I establish and what I contribute to it, then it's in my hands to live my life well. Since the meaning of life is subjective to me, the subject. By establishing good and correct relationships with objects, I can interpret my life as good and beautiful. Is it really like that? Yes and no. Yes, because everyone's life is their own. No, because everyone's individual life is not independent of the external world. There is a constant flow between the individual and their external world. The concept of happiness has two fundamental definitions that are relevant today: Epicurean and Stoic definitions. Whether we define the foundation of happiness as pleasure, not hedonism in the strict sense of Epicurus, or as the virtuous life and morality of the Stoics, in the end, happiness is a fundamental factor in making human life worth living and its formative element. In a society where there is no freedom of thought, expression, and organization for the individual, where there is no equal, just, and universal law, where life security is not guaranteed, rights are violated, where exploitation, oppression, and tyranny prevail, how does the individual interpret their life, and how is their joy of living? The internal world of the individual, cultural norms, mental world, are data that guide and determine the individual's quality of life. However, if these data are within the constraints of that external world, that society generally consists of troubled individuals. The problem here is not merely economic. A society may be economically weak, but still have the joy of life and hope. All that is needed is freedom, universal law, justice, and a system that does not darken the future of individuals. The indicator of the joy of living, namely happiness, blossoms in such societies and individuals like flowers with colors and fragrances, flowing like rivers. When we look at the relationship between the system we are in, our lives, and the level of our joy of living from this perspective, we see this triad more closely and obtain concrete results. We may find life sometimes meaningless. These are the temporary ups and downs of human life. However, the chronicity of this condition signals a psychic breakdown. The point reached by the idea that existence